Welcome to Leveraging Leadership, where we unpack the art of business leadership. I'm your host, Emily Sander, Chief of Staff turned Executive Leadership Coach. In this series, we dive into the role of Chief of Staff, exploring how it can be a game changer and pivotal player on your leadership team. You'll get a backstage pass and learn about the different aspects of the role and what it takes to excel in it. We'll hear from some incredible guests who have firsthand experience serving as Chief of Staff or collaborating with one on their team. And don't forget, the Chief of Staff isn't just a title or person, it represents a leadership philosophy. Leveraging leadership is all about finding your points of greatest influence and leveraging them to better serve those around you. Anna, welcome, and thank you so much for being on Leveraging Leadership. It's awesome to have you here.
Hi, Emily. Thank you so much. It's a pleasure. And I'm really excited for our conversation today.
Awesome. Me too. And to get us started off with, so you speak an impressive amount of languages. So is it 3? Is it 4? Is it 5? How many languages do you speak?
Well, it's actually only 3 of them.
Only 3.
So I speak fluently Ukrainian, Russian, and English. And an interesting part is that I never learned Russian. So I never studied it in school or in university. I was part of Ukraine in a capital, and we all know 2 languages, like just naturally, because all of TV and commercial was in 2 languages.
Yeah.
So we just naturally learned it, and then grammar comes into place later. But it's like such a great addition, like you're born and you know 2 languages.
Yeah,
So
for sure. I mean, that's really common pretty much anywhere outside the US. So I remember having clients in Europe and they would speak, 3 or 4 languages. They speak English better than me, and then they'd apologize for their English being so bad. And I was like, okay, I'll go look up what that word means in my own language. Thank you. So that is very
yeah.
cool. That is very
No, it
cool.
is very cool. I feel like, especially in California, where I am right now, everyone speaks like English and Spanish, which I feel like those are 2 powerful languages.
Yeah.
Like, I wish I learned Spanish too. Maybe
Yes.
one day.
Spanish is useful. Yeah. If you're in America, it's probably one of the most useful ones. It used to be French. I think French was like the diplomatic language or something. But
It
anyway,
is, yeah, French is still a legal language in Europe.
okay.
So I feel like all the documents in NATO or European Union, they are like in both English and French still.
Yeah. And that kind of segues us into how you got to studying. You studied law as your profession.
Yes. When I was a child, I always dreamed of becoming a detective. And yeah, I loved mysteries and I loved watching like detective movies. But, my family was not very happy about it. Like my mom was saying it's not for a woman to become a detective.
Oh,
Yeah, that they need to find another profession. So I found that being a lawyer is kind of similar as being a detective because you need to like you have unique cases and you find a unique approach to solve them. So I was like, okay, I'm just going to become a lawyer. Um, and then I just got into law school in Ukraine. I studied in one of the best law schools. It's in Odessa. And I loved it. Yeah, so it was great.
and that one was mom approved.
Well, not really, but they were like, okay, it's better than being a
A
detective.
detective. Nice.
So
Nice.
go for it. And
Okay.
yeah, and I always also like loved helping people. So I feel like with law, you have that power that you can help someone.
Mhm.
And also, growing up in Ukraine, I saw a lot of corruption and I saw that people not are not being treated equally in a courtroom. So I wanted to change that. And I know that one person cannot change the system, but I thought, okay, like at least I can help like a couple of people and it's already great.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. No, I
I
mean,
became a lawyer.
yeah, it makes a big difference. Yeah. Thank you for that. So take us from you went to law school in Odessa and then all the way to being chief of staff at Tokensoft. So what's the kind of the recap of how you got into the chief of staff role?
Yeah. So, well, a year before graduating from a law school, I came to the United States for student exchange program. And at the end of that program, I came to Los Angeles to visit my friend, and I just fell in love with the city. Like, I needed to come back to finish my law degree,
Mm.
but I had this dream already to come back and study business degree. And at that time, it was like a dream for me because it was too complicated and it was too expensive. But like, I feel like when a person truly wants something, they can do it. Like, the universe is going to help you.
Yeah.
Somehow it's going to happen. You just need to try it to do it.
Yeah.
And so after studying for a year, I studied for my English exam in order to be accepted to business school here. And I found a program that was offering like affordable tuition. So after a year, I came back and I was accepted to a business school in California, in Irvine, which is like an hour away from LA, my dream. So that was great. I still remember it. It was one of the happiest moments probably in my life. And when I came to United States, I really needed to find a job. So I started working in consulting company, but soon I leveraged my law background and I started working in various law firms. Um, at some point of time, I was working at 3 jobs, and I was being a paralegal, accountant, general manager, real estate manager, like everything.
Mm.
And I feel like I learned a lot during that time. And because I learned like everything, I learned legal billing, I learned accounting, I had my own cases. And at the end, I even was working in one of the best law companies in the United States, and we were working with top tier clients. So probably it's been like 4 years. I was working in law industry, and I figured out that something was missing. Like, I wanted to work in more innovative and creative environment. So that's how I moved in the tech space. Like, I started looking for a job and I found a job in a tech startup. And I joined it. For 3 months, I was working as an executive assistant. But then I moved to a chief of staff position, where right now I work as a chief of staff and I help basically manage teams and projects.
So having that diverse background and doing a whole bunch of different things set you up well for being a chief of staff because there's a lot of that in the chief of staff role. And you mentioned that your legal background helped you with other projects. So I'm wondering, what did having a law degree and that legal perspective, how did that shape your chief of staff role? Do you use that in your role today?
Yes. So my company, we are a fintech company, and we focus heavily on compliance and regulations in the cryptocurrency space.
Yeah.
And that's where my law background ha- came in handy
Yeah.
because now, like, I basically help to communicate with outside counsels. You need to have like a specific background and understanding of law and lawyers' work in order to make those communication more effective. You
Yeah.
need to know what questions to ask, like what documents to review when and how. And yeah, so basically, right now, a part of my job is to make sure that all of our documents are up to date and compliant. And always like be in touch with our outside counsel to make sure that everything is fine and that like we're going in the right direction. And whenever we have like a new product line, or we want to change something in our agreements, or we want to work with a client that has a unique situation, all of those documents needs to be reviewed and communicated to our lawyers in a proper way. So that's what my communication is going.
Well, all chiefs of staff have to be adaptable and flexible and kind of move with the market and industry trends. But I imagine with cryptocurrency, that's even heightened or even accelerated even more. So, can you talk a little bit about how you mentioned working with outside counsel and then making sure the changing rules and regulations you're staying up to date with? And then also, filtering that information or conveying that information internally to the executive team in a way that is meaningful to them. So, can you talk about just talking to all those different groups of people and then conveying information back and forth?
Yeah, so compliance is a top priority in our company. That's how we differentiate ourselves from everyone else right now. And yeah, as you said, like all the laws and regulations are changing all the time in our area and in our industry, which makes it not an easy task. But as I mentioned, like I work constantly with outside counsels, and our outside counsels are top US attorneys. So they always know what's happening or like what we need to change. Like it's kind of like we have even in-house counsel because get with them every week, like 2 3 times per week. Like we always have something going on. And in terms of how it's communicated to internal team, basically whenever we need to review something, everything goes through me, and then I talk with lawyers, and then I come back with the results. And because yeah, so basically whenever there is new feature coming up or new product line or new agreement, everything goes through me. And until I say like, okay, we are good to go, like no one releases anything, you know?
So you're the conduit, you're the final checkoff. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. And then talk to me a little bit about I think that you have a relatively small company still. It's relatively small in the big picture. So how do you work with your principal and other executives? What type of communication do you have with them?
Yeah, we work very closely. As you said, because we are not that big of a team, we spend a lot of time together brainstorming and have meetings. So, for example, every day we have a strategy call in the morning, and it's a call with the leadership team, which is like our CTO, our head of operation, head of product, and CEO, and me. So, this is the first part. Then I have one-on-one meetings with every head of department, and then we have meetings with each department. And I am going to all of these meetings just to make sure that everyone is aligned. So sometimes I can have like 5 to 6 internal meetings a day. It's like half of my week. But it's very important because like I need to understand what everyone is working on. Are we meeting deadlines? Are we not meeting deadlines? If everyone working on the correct thing. Because like when you have a vision and like a goal in a company, everyone needs to direct uh, they all like power to the one thing, because if everyone will work on the different tasks, we will never accomplish anything.
Yes.
So it's important if one department has an issue, like for example, our sales department needs to change something in a product offering in order to better sell the product. They need to communicate it to the developer team.
Right.
And, but they are gonna like if I am in sales meeting and then I'm going to developers meeting, I can like kind of expedite it, and I can say, oh, this thing came up. Can we like add it to our uh, product roadmap right now
Mhm.
and fix it?
Yeah.
So these little things which are very useful for a company.
Yeah. So you can connect the dots because you're seeing across all the different teams. And you also, it sounds like, can provide a little context for other teams. They might not be aware of some information that's happening with sales or with product. And so you can kind of fill in those gaps
Yes.
for people. Um, yes. And I'm wondering, so since you have that strong legal background, for people who don't come from a legal background or experience, what's some advice you can give people when they are interacting with their legal team or their contracts team or even accounting for that matter? Like, what are some things we wish, like, oh, I wish everyone knew about this, or like, I can't do anything with that information because I have to know X, Y, and Z? Is there anything like that where if you could get the word out for people when you deal with legal matters or you're talking to your outside or inside counsel, here's what you should do?
Basically, it just needs to be very strategic, and you need to describe it very well, because if you don't do it, you will go back and forth many times without understanding what's happening. And some people just sometimes don't even think that they need to review some specific issue by a legal counsel. So that's when like someone who understands law comes in handy, because like I know, oh wait, like we can't do this without asking a legal advice. Like, and then you need to ask it. With lawyers, how you communicate, you need to provide all the details in the first email or first communication. So it saves a lot of times,
Well,
basically.
going back to that detective work, so one of my an attorney I know said do it like a investigative dossier. So it's like outline the context, outline the people, and say it factually. So no, like take out the adjectives, like all these different fillers or biases or different things, but just say the facts and present all that information to the lawyer, and then they'll ask you follow-up questions.
Yes, exactly. You need to be very short, direct, and specific.
Yes.
Here is the issue. Here is a document where something needs to be changed. It needs to be changed in this line here, these two words. Can we do it or not? You need to be very specific with them
Yeah.
because, law is very interesting and it can be directed in very different directions.
Yes, for sure. And I remember our sales team would go back and forth with our contracts team who had a lawyer on it, and they would push for certain things to be in the contract. And sometimes there would be pushback saying, no, we can't do that because it would expose the company in these different ways. But sometimes the salesperson would ask for something and the legal team would come back and say, actually, we have this thing that would accomplish your goal. And the salesperson didn't even know about it. They're like, oh my gosh, that's amazing. So I think your advice of go, double check with your legal team just to see what the options are is good advice.
Yeah, and also if it's a concept that you engage, like just started to work with, it's very important to give them all the background on about your company and about your technology and what you need to accomplish. Like right now, because we have been working with the same councils since the beginning, they know everything about us, what we did, what we are planning to do, and what we need to do or not to do. But like if you just knew, it's very important to provide all the details. Because sometimes, as you said, you might not even think of this solution, but they do because they have many clients with the same problems, or with the same technology.
Yeah. And just curious, how closely do you work with finance?
Um, I work closely because we need to. I'm helping to monitor the budget, and we need to establish KPIs so we meet the budget requirements. Also, because I help with hiring all the time, I need to talk with my finance team how many people we can hire and what is a priority hire and what salary we can offer. And so it's yeah, I work very closely because, for example, last week we had offsite. We brought all of our team here. This year we do it once a year,
Okay.
and I was the one who organized it. It has been second year that I organized it, and I need to know the budget, right? And I need to work closely with finance team to see what we can afford, what we cannot afford, what is the priorities that we need to do this year, and stuff like that.
Yeah. No, sounds good. I remember. So my principal, he was both our inside counsel and our CFO, basically in one person. So it was a package deal in that sense. But I know a lot of chiefs of staff. I know a lot of people with legal backgrounds work almost hand in glove with the CFO or the head of finance, just because there is so much overlap. So I was just curious about that. Um,
Yeah, because you also, and it works other way around too, because I need to tell our CFO of our needs of the company. I'm going to all of these meetings and I see, oh, maybe our marketing team needs a little bit more budget for the marketing this month, or maybe we need to hire in this department. So where else we can save?
Yeah.
So I have weekly, I have a meeting with our finance team to discuss all of those things.
Okay. So, as we round out here, what is some advice you would give a chief of staff, so an aspiring chief of staff or a current chief of staff, and then an executive who works with the chief of staff?
Okay. So for someone who wants to be a chief of staff, I feel like it's very important from from my perspective to be proactive and not to be afraid of being a leader, like taking leadership of the projects. Being proactive, for example, because you might be hired for a company and they don't know all of your skills, so you need to show it somehow.
Mm.
They are not going to ask you to do something if they are not sure if you are capable of doing it, or maybe they think it's too much. But if you show that you're interested and they put you on a spot and they give you a project to lead, you should definitely do it, because then you can reveal all your skills and show that you're a leader and be promoted, you know? And the same, I feel like with taking responsibility of the project, I think this is very important because most of the people, I feel like afraid of doing this because, no one wants to be responsible if the project fails or something goes wrong. There is always one person who who will take an ownership of that. But it goes the other way around too. If the project succeeds, who is going to be rewarded the most? The leader of the project, right? So it happens to me. That's how I kind of moved from being executive assistant to become a chief of staff, because I was taking a lot of, like, I was very proactive and I wanted to work everywhere. Like, I was very curious about the company and what I can do and how I can help. So my first big project was actually organize an offsite. It was the first time when a company did a big offsite event. We had like 3 days event, and I planned it, I budgeted, I did all the logistics, everything from the beginning to the end. And everyone was so impressed about it. They're like, oh, so she's good like with budgeting, she's good with project managing, she can execute, she can do all of these things. So maybe we need to promote her, you know? So that's what I think is the most valuable thing, just to show, speak up, and be proactive.
I love that. And I think, being proactive, that's one of the biggest things that I work with my clients on is we always have a discussion at some point in the coaching of you probably need to be a little bit more proactive here because if people are waiting for permission or for a specific direction that doesn't always come, whereas if you jump into something and you say, "Hey, let's try this," or "Hey, here's a potential solution, let's talk about that." I think that goes a long way with people and it gets you out there too and it starts the ball rolling. And another important thing that you said, I just want to highlight is chiefs of staff are leaders. So think of yourself as a leader and an executive high level leader at that. So a lot of people are like, oh, it's just little old me. So I couldn't contribute to that project or what I say doesn't matter next to this big executive. But if you think of yourself, and as you should, as an executive leader and part of that leadership team, then you show up a little bit differently.
Exactly. I feel like everything starts within us. So how you feel yourself, if you feel yourself as a leader, like others will also see you as a leader.
Yeah.
But if you're gonna be afraid and you're gonna be afraid of show of your skills or what you can do, then people will never like they will never see that part of you.
Yeah.
Because
I
everyone is thinking about themselves more than about other people, right?
Yes, that's true in business and in life. So just remember,
Exactly.
just a good reminder. And I think the flip side to that is for executives is assume that you have untapped talent on your team. You have untapped potential within your team because you do. I can almost guarantee it. So, being curious and asking and almost being proactive the other way in really investigating and finding out where your team has strong skill sets is another great way to go about that.
Yeah, actually, talking about this, we had offsite, and one of our activities during the offsite, we did a Colby test. I don't know if you heard about it, but it's test that tests your personality and basically tests your skill set on what you're naturally good at. And we did it as a whole team to understand like what is basically natural good at and what they need to work on based on this skill set and what are we missing. And it showed like actually excellent results, like because some people are very good in like taking initiative and quickly start on something, and some other people need to research everything. Like I need to, before I like start a project, I need to do the whole research, systemize everything, put it in Notion, like making sure everything is right, aligned, we have deadlines, I have all the documents for it. Then I can say, okay, let's do it. But some people are like, oh, that's a great idea, yeah, let's do it
Let's just
tomorrow.
go. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And you need both kind of people,
Absolutely.
both kind of people in the organization. So we actually figure out that we are missing like a type of person who is gonna systemize our product roadmap. And it's a good way to start hiring, because now we actually decided that whenever we add a new team member, we will give them this task to do, just to make sure that they have a skill set that we don't have in a company right now.
Yes, I love that. And assessments can be useful. I think sometimes they're overdone and people kind of overemphasize them, but they can be a really good framework to work from. I have one chief of staff who does a series of assessments on anyone coming into the team, and she really
Oh,
uses
wow.
those to help align. Just like you were saying, we need all sorts of people to have a well-rounded team, and so she makes sure all the different groups or cohorts have all those different people. I'm like you. I like to be prepared. I probably think and overthink about things, and could use someone who just can jump right in there and is more off the cuff. But I'm strong in certain areas with my skill set, and that person who is more outgoing or influential or gregarious is strong in their skill set. So it really does make it does take all those personalities to build a good team.
Totally agree. Totally agree. Because if you have like a great project, you created a system and you started it, but you didn't have someone to follow through and take it to the end, you're never going to succeed, right? So that's a very important part.
Yeah, and I see a lot of chiefs of staff being paired with visionaries. So, like visionaries who invent a company or invent a product or see something in the market that's missing, that's not there today. And then they have that skill set, but they don't have the let's turn it into reality. Let's actually execute on the ground and plan and put arms and legs to it sometimes. So, it's these pairings that where it's a complementary skill set that brings out the best in each other and gets stuff done. So yes, that's an awesome, awesome thing to leave on. And Anna, I want to thank you again so much for being a guest on the show. I love your background and I love your insights, and I'm sure our audience will get a lot out of them as well. So thank you once again.
Oh my God. Thank you so much, Emily. I had a great time and I hope it was helpful for our audience too.
I'm sure it was. Thanks so much, Anna.
Thank you and have a great time.
If you're not interested in gaining valuable knowledge and becoming a better leader, then by all means, don't subscribe. But if you're keen on becoming a highly knowledgeable, more successful and confident leader, then hit that subscribe button.